Mustache Tales.
Yeah!
Hello, welcome to another Mustache Tales. I'm Jay Chandrasekhar. This is Hayes MacArthur, and I'll introduce our guest in a second. So, since we're on this, the subject today is going to be longevity and health. And I was a teenage Indian kid in the suburbs of Chicago, and there were none others around. And it was time when Animal House was out, and Fletch and Caddyshack and all these movies where the characters were sort of getting hammered. And I remember very eagerly, very, very strongly wanting to be part of this. I mean, I was, my parents are born in India, I was born here, but I wanted to be part of this, America. I wanted to be a normal American kid. And so I started drinking at 10, and then I stopped for about 2 years until 8th grade. And then I started at 13, and I never stopped. And,
you started drinking at 10?
Well, one night. I mean, yes, one night. I don't tell that story. It's outrageous.
What were you drinking at 10?
Well, at 10, what we did is we went behind my parents' bar. We took a pitcher, yellow tennis pitcher, which is about this big, filled it with a little bit of each alcohol so we wouldn't get caught. I've been rarely caught in my life. I've been like a professional criminal from the beginning. And we walked around the neighborhood drinking out of that pitcher and got, as you can imagine, horribly drunk. And then I showed up on my parents' doorstep on a Tuesday in the summer, and then threw up all night. I called my mom a bitch and did all sorts of awful things. And then the next day, we went out to drink wine. Well, no, we didn't go to drink. We went out to dinner, and the people at the next table were drinking wine, and I was like, I'm never drinking again. And I didn't until I was 13. And then at 13, I never stopped. And I always felt like that sort of smoking weed and, frankly, drinking and doing cocaine and ecstasy and all these things, mushrooms. People looked at me and were like, this Indian is not like the other ones. And maybe they're cool. I know. I actually enjoyed all that stuff. I really did. But it was also a part of my identity. Now I'm older. And, it's very important to be healthier now, right? I mean, to me, it's, and I'll tell you all the things I'm doing to be healthy. What's that?
I said, don't you hate that you have to be healthy now?
Yeah. So here are all the things I'm doing to be healthy. I eat vegetarian in the morning. I intermittent fast, 16 hours. So my first meal is vegetarian. Next meal I eat whatever I want. I meditate every morning for 10 minutes. I do 20 minutes of yoga and 20 minutes of calisthenics. I play golf 7 days a week.
That's not healthy.
Eat on the Mediterranean diet. I largely don't smoke much weed anymore. Occasionally I'll eat it, but I can smoke it now, like once every 6 weeks. But alcohol, I was reading about this thing called neurogenesis. And neurogenesis, according to what I read, was if you don't drink alcohol for 7 days, you can generate new brain cells in your hippocampus. And I'm like, I'm going to do that. And as it turns out, I've been trying for about 3 years, and I've only made one night. And I don't even drink a lot on these nights. I drink, at most 2 to 4, right? But the monkey inside me cannot stop having one. And I quit cigarettes like years ago, and I'm trying the same approach with alcohol. I'm reducing and I'm tricking myself. But my question is this. My body mass index is 24. If I do all of these things, can I drink a little bit? Now I want to introduce you to our guest, Dr. Greg Bailey. He's the founder of the company Juvenescence. He's a healthcare entrepreneur. The company is devoted to finding medicine and supplements that help you to live longer healthy. Did I get that right, Greg?
Health is important.
Okay, great. So yeah, I do all these things. I mean, look, the reality of the people who listen to this podcast is they want to know if they can have a little drink. And I met you. When I met you, I asked you a similar question, and you said, I said, how much alcohol is okay? And you said 0.
Don't shoot the messenger.
Any update on that answer?
Yeah, no, unfortunately, it was actually, to be fair, last year there were 2 studies, 600,000 patients, 400,000 patients, that said to live longer, 0 alcohol is the number. Previous studies had indicated that drinking was good, but what they didn't differentiate is most people don't drink alone. They drink with people. We know that being social, being interactive, play a huge role in living longer. So what I would say, and then a study came out again this year, and again it said, half a glass of wine would live longer. So I actually published a bit of a blog on this, and I said, so pick whichever one's going to make you happiest, because we know being happy allows you to live longer. The number one quality for living through 100 is being happy and being involved in a respected, integrated in society, having a sense of purpose. The number one way to live longer is education, and number 2 is money. So I don't know if that answered your question, and you can pick and choose which of those answers you liked.
Greg, I just love that, well, first of all, usually we interview comedians and actors. So when Jay said that he was excited to have you on because he's been listening to your lectures and researching your product, and mentioned that you were a serial entrepreneur, I was like, I love cereal. I grew up in Applejack and Frosted Flakes and Lucky Charms. And he was like, no, hey, this is a different angle for the show today. Then I did some research on you, and you've created and been part of companies that are multi-billion-dollar market caps for migraine drugs and prostate cancer. And now you're in the health space. And I just am so shocked that Jay is taking all the knowledge that you possess to make him and ask you about drinking, if you can have some drinks to start it off, because that's the real motivation for having you on. He was looking for you to say, Jay, you can knock down a half bottle of vodka and be okay.
Who doesn't want
You said 0. You said 0.
When I was practicing medicine, a doctor I worked with was asked, doctor, if I stop womanizing, drinking, smoking, gambling, will I live longer? And he said, I don't know, but it'll seem longer. So I'm acutely aware of the quality of life plays a huge role in this equation.
Do you drink?
I don't. I mean, I do it to toast because it's not religion, but no, I don't.
Yeah. Got it. And when did you stop?
We know it's a poison. Put it on, a cut and it'll kill the cells. Unfortunately.
There you go. Interesting. So let me ask you this: you're in a field, and this, look, as somebody who does all of these things that I do, and I'm sure you probably do even more. My Instagram feed is starting to get blown up with doctors, neurologists, these in addition to like bikini models and golf swings. I also have doctors and neurologists. So, I mean, you can really get a sense of who I am by looking at my Instagram. That's why I have a fake Instagram, which I won't tell you what it is. But that one's the real deal. Anyway, I listen to these doctors initially, and I'm like, oh, this guy's a neurologist, and his job is devoted to stopping Alzheimer's. And then he posts a lot, like, I don't know, it has to be 3 or 4 times a day. And I feel like I'm about to be sold something. And it's a space that's similar. It's not really similar to show business, but it's in show business, there are a lot of people who are like, let me tell you what the next big movie is going to be. And most of the people don't really know how to make a movie. They don't really know how to do it, but they're trying to make some money. And so I have a little thing inside me that really doesn't want to get ripped off. And so I I look at all these doctors who I feel like are about to sell me something, and I'm like, it's a tough space to be in, right? Like, I'll give you an example. There's a thing called face yoga, right? Apparently, it'll sculpt your face, it'll drain your lymph nodes. I don't know. Then there's a thing that's like a big rubber thing. You stick in your mouth, and you just chew it, and that sculpts your jaw. Then there's a thing called Spartan gum, right? Which it's really tough gum and you chew it. And I'm like, and I read about this stuff too much. And I'm like, am I about to get ripped off for $32 by a pack of gum? And I feel like this space is hard. Like, it's like, I mean, your job is to convince people that you are, one of the companies that sort of is going to unlock the fountain of youth. Do you meet a lot of people who are illegitimate?
So, I mean, it's really tough. When we were first starting the company, you realize that you have to trust me. I'm going to give you a product that you may have to take for 30 years that's going to add 10 healthy years to your life, but you don't know it till the end. So I have to have enormous credibility. So when I was creating the company and I was working with a group as to how to position it, I said, we're living in a world that has a crisis of trust. We don't trust politicians. We don't trust pharmacy. We don't trust doctors anymore. We really don't have this issue. So how do we rise above it? If you walk into your Walgreens, your Rite Aid, your CVS, you're going to see 100 things that say they're anti-aging and they're not. So what do we have to do? So credibility is enormous for me, and so everything I will produce is going to have clinical trials, double blind. So we give the people the placebo, we give the people the product. I don't know who's getting what. Somebody else is monitoring, not us. And then at the end, we can say, this does what it says. This truthfully, can do it. And I told the team, I said, if we have a product and we launch it and even if it's doing 100 million in sales, we subsequently find out it doesn't work, we have to stop making it because I have to have you trust us. So yeah, it's huge. And in our sector, there's an enormous, well, as I said, go walk into any drugstore, most cosmetics would say they're anti-aging. So yeah, it's definitely a cross we bear, but the clinical trials, and the most important thing is we are beginning to create blood work, biometric panels that I can tell you, you took this product, Hayes, today, and I tested you before you took it, and I tested you at the end of the year, and in that year, you only aged 6 months. Wow. Now I'm going to take your product. So we are going to have that level of sophistication to do it. And by the way, the first anti-aging drug is on the market today. It's called Wegovy, Ozempic. And if you take it, it's anti-aging because it prevents you from getting heart disease, neurological disease, diabetes, losing weight, metabolic disease. And it's $100 to $150 billion a year that they think it's going to be in 2025. So if I have a drug today that allowed you to live 10 years longer healthy, you're talking $100 billion a year product. So do the clinical trials, make sure they're incredibly safe because people are going to need to take it long term, and you have something profound. And then you rise above the morass, if that made sense.
Can you talk about the difference between health span and lifespan for someone who doesn't know the difference of those two things and why you've keyed in on health span? And because your other products and companies have been focused on, actually, is it wrong, increasing lifespan, the prostate drugs, but this is actually a liminal phase before you would get to.
Yeah, no, but delighted. Trying to figure out how to be funny telling this now that you've told me you have all these comedians on. But basically, the discrepancy between when you die and when you were last healthy is health span and lifespan. And in the developed world, there's a 10-year gap, and it's a bell curve. So some people are sick for the last 20 years of their life. Some people are really, really lucky and they're healthy till the day they die, and suddenly they kick off. There's a very famous race car driver who told his wife, give me a cup of tea. I think I'm going to be dead within the hour, and did. So, isn't that would be an ideal scenario for most of us to, just literally live really well to the end. Interestingly, it's 10 years for the developed world, except in Denmark. where it's 3 years, the difference between health span and lifespan. Nobody knows why. But so that's our goal. I want to give you 10 healthy years. Nobody wants to live another 30 years if they're in a wheelchair, they have Alzheimer's. So it has to be about health, which is to go back to your point, Jay, earlier about the neurologists and Alzheimer's. I don't think we're going to be able to treat Alzheimer's. I think once you've started to create these tangles, you may be able to slow it down, which is what the current drugs do. This is all going to be about prevention. Can we find a product that prevents you from starting that, falling off the cliff?
Well, like this neurologist who I still do trust so far, he's every day it's like, you should take these 3 things. Then the next post is, you should take these 4 things. And you're like, I don't even know how, and I don't know the dose. I don't know if I trust you. I don't know.
At this point in time.
Are you guys trying to create a multivitamin? Like, do you, let me ask you this.
No, we're doing drugs like, as well. And they literally work on pathways that are involved in aging. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, okay. Do you sit around, like when we write comedies, right? We sit around and go, let's make one where we'll play the Secret Service, or let's make one where it's a golf trip to Scotland, whatever. Do you guys sit around and go, we need a pill that makes you harder longer? We need a pill that makes your face look younger. We need a pill, like, do you do this? Is this sort of how this?
No, my team tried to do that when we were starting, and I said, this is all about being opportunistic. We are going to be approached by people who've already spent 10 years in a lab. One of our guys who's developed a product called Plasmalogens, it's his life work. And this is potentially a product that would appear to decrease your chances of getting Alzheimer's by 6x, which is preventative. But he spent his life, and if you I knew I wanted to try and find a drug that prevented Alzheimer's. Did I know that I would find one? No, but have we? Yes. I told, when we started the company, I said, I want to give you 10 healthy years of living. And we found a product out of University of Michigan that may indeed give you 10 healthy years. So, you have to sort of, wait for things to come to you. We know areas that we'd love to find a product in. There's an area called Clotho pathway that's remarkable. And if you could find something that modified that would be incredible and would add significant healthy years.
What is the Clotho pathway?
I'm not going to do it great justice, but it has places. There's 4 major cellular pathways that cause your body, your cells to age. It's mTOR, sirtuins, AMPK, and nicotinamide. And they're also in a feedback loop. And Clotho is one of the interactive elements within it. So if you can solve that riddle, which I think is not going to happen until we have quantum computing, I can literally begin to slow down the aging of your cells. Now, David Sinclair at Harvard is working on something called epigenetics, where he changes your genetic profile back to a younger state, and in mice has been able to reverse aging by 50%, according to his paper that he published recently. So there's all sorts of spectacular things that are happening.
How do you go about changing a genetic profile?
So you have 22,000 genes. You'd be happy to hear, Hayes, if I change less than 5% of them, you're Jay, or your significant other. So it's that, they're that few. But the more important factor is when they're turned on and off, and that's epigenetics. And so if I can reverse what has happened as you've aged back to an earlier state, I literally can change basically almost your biological age. So it's profound. And basically it's done by methylating the DNA, which is also how we figure out what your biological age is versus your chronological age. And by what I mean is chronological age, how many years you've been on the planet, biological age, how fast or slow your body is aging. And Jay, because he's doing all those wonderful things to his body, will have a younger biological age than somebody who's not doing yoga, meditating, eating well.
The risk, though, mentally, as I think about it, with affecting DNA is, what if it, what if it causes some unknown thing, right? I mean, obviously,
Oops.
now obviously we could never know that, right? I mean, uh, but
So we're
that's
not
the risk
influencing the
people would have to
DNA
take.
with the epigenetics. We're influencing how they're turning on and off. I'm not change. I mean, you are change. The epigenetics changes the DNA, but that's not the process. But yeah, there's a thing called CRISPR. The two people who founded it basically won the Nobel Prize. There's zinc fingers, which we had before, and now CRISPR and CRISPR-Cas9, which are just iterations of how to manipulate your DNA. And they had a problem with one of the CRISPR products causing cancer, but they've also found one which is amazing for hemophilia, where they literally can splice in to reverse it. One of the things to get rid of the Alzheimer's, which you're at risk of if you drink, but we hopefully will solve in the next couple of years for you, is that we actually use CRISPR to put in the protective gene for which is ApoE2, ApoE2. Unfortunately, Chris Hemsworth has the other one, ApoE4, which is the bad actor. But hopefully with CRISPR, we may be able to give Chris, that Apo product.
CRISPR, can you just edit my genes to get me to stop drinking 4 drinks a night?
Interestingly, I was talking to David Sinclair and I asked him, I said, what exists today that's going to change the world the most in the next 5 to 10 years? And he said, I will be able to edit your genes. And then somebody else was sitting on the other side of me, Alex Pickett, said, yeah, I'll be able to use a spray, a virus with CRISPR, and I can change your hair color, your eye color, or potentially your, appetite for alcohol, because basically, a lot of it is genetic.
I have a question about young blood. Okay, so I read about, and look, the reason I'm reading about all these sort of things is I wrote a novel about a neurosurgeon in Chicago, and so I've been reading a lot of stuff about brains and longevity and whatever. And so one of the characters asks this brain surgeon if getting transfusion of young people's blood can make you younger. And so I looked it up online, and what I found was that there was a study that is not, I don't think they have any conclusions yet, but they basically attached a young mouse to an old mouse.
2 studies.
And okay, and then the older mouse, in fact, seemed to become younger, but the younger mouse seemed to become older.
Yeah.
And it made me think of how horrifying some poorer young people or the decisions they're gonna make, to give Rupert Murdoch their blood. How much will they accept?
I always kid that it's gonna be Larry Ellison, but we can go with Rupert.
I mean, Darth Vader himself, the Emperor.
It's called parabiosis.
There was a study.
It's called parabiosis. There were 2 studies, one done in 1957, where they conjoined the old and the young so that they shared the same blood. And to your point, old mouse got younger, young mouse got older. And then they repeated it at Stanford in early 2000s, and they found the same result. Since then, everybody who was in that lab is trying to find out what the magic elixir is. Harvard thinks it's something called GDF11, and there's a company called Allevion, which has a GDF11 product to try and reverse aging. So the problem is it me giving you one shot of young blood? Or do you have to continuously be getting the young blood? And is it really all down to growth hormones and just younger hormones that's causing me? And the damage that is done to our blood system as we age being foisted on that poor young person, strapped to Rupert Murdoch, Larry Ellison's back. It's really fascinating to see where it all ends up. But the research is crazy on these sort of things. They've just taken a brain at Yale University, a pig, and a pig that died. And I've forgotten how long, but it's a significant amount, say 2-3 hours, took the brain and brought it back to life in a jar. So this pig is now, his brain is now alive, and they're talking about doing it in humans. Your science fiction novel and neurosurgery novel.
I mean, this is exactly how we make a movie in Hollywood. We take an idea like this, and I'm already like,
whoa,
let's get Margot Robbie, and we'll attach her to an older woman, and there's, and they have to be connected. They're circling. I mean, this is, and they can't wear shirts because nobody has a shirt for forearms. You get how it works. But yeah, this is. I'm not kidding. I'm gonna make this movie. Go ahead, Dave.
Greg, do you think that the way people are able to predetermine what their genetic code is and what they're exposed to based on their genetics, and especially being in the space of preventative medicine, is going to lead? I mean, how does it drive the demand for? It's almost like with the Chris Hemsworth thing. I don't know if I would want to know what my body knows if I'm predisposed to something. And if I do know, I'm going to be in a new market. I'm a new customer, for lack of a better word, of all these different products to address these genetic things that I'm, predestined to get. Have you seen, is that driving a lot of stuff in your space of people rushing into an area to try to prevent something that's going to happen to them?
So, I mean, people ask all the time, should I get my genome done? And, do I do 23andMe, which isn't really a whole genome. You have to do that's called SNPs, and they're not, it's a little bit accurate. But yeah, no, I mean, if I had the BRCA gene, which is the one that Angelina Jolie has, so I'm going to get, I am going to get breast cancer. Yeah, I'd want to know, so you could try and make decisions as she did with her doing the mastectomy and mammoplasty. So I think that there's certain ones you'd like to know because it would change your behavior and you'd be able to prevent them. So that's huge. And also, once we know a gene predisposes you to something, yeah, let's try and find a drug so that, nobody wants to know you've got a gene that's going to give you brain cancer if we don't have a treatment for it. But if I know that you're going to get brain cancer, but I can find a drug to prevent it, all hail. And yeah, I think that, most people I would assume would want to know and would want to have that product. So, but it is, it's a yin and yang, and that's going to be very interesting and will dictate what I call precision medicine, where the product they view Hayes is different than the product that Jay should take. And it will prevent the diseases you are predisposed to. And we're getting there. We're very close. We're talking to a company in Canada that has some of that technology today.
The technology to prevent certain things as they come up as a detection.
You'd
be able to get like an a la carte menu of what's going to happen to you, and then you can go chase down the remedies. That's what I want.
You guys are tough, man. I gotta
know what's going to happen, and then what do I take?
You want the a la carte medicine program? I think that we're going
to know how to drink too. Believe me.
We will begin to sort this out. I don't know, over what time frame. We're gradually picking them off now as to, knowing that this genetic profile and this epigenetics predisposes you to XYZ. And so how do we either reverse the epigenetics or give you something that'll supplement it? They did some really cool work in people who weren't responding to the drug that they should have responded to, and they tested their metabolites in their body, and now have 6 supplements that they can give this people to make the drug work for them, which is amazing. So yeah, it's cool stuff coming, and crazy stuff like the poor pig brain, and now some human being wanting to have their brain in a jar. Jay, another movie, buddy.
Another movie. That's number 2. My question is this. Okay, so I've been intermittent fasting for about 3 years, and to me, I'm able to control my weight like a dial. Like if occasionally I'll run it up to 189, I'll have a couple of cheeseburgers, I'm like, I'm gonna get back down, and I'll eat salmon, and I'll just kind of clean up like a little bit of the, I don't eat a lot of sugar, but like less, no pasta, whatever, and I can dial it right back down to 183. And it's no problem for me. I've psychologically gotten to the point where I'm like, I eat at noon, no problem. Now, I read that putting your body into this sort of like, it's not starvation, but it's like deprivation.
Ketosis.
Like, okay, ketosis.
Well,
Like that, and
ketosis.
well, I want to talk about ketosis in 1 second, but the other things that I heard can create similar reactions in the body are, and I want to know about this, are cold plunging and like exercise. Have like 30 minutes of like heart wrenching pushing exercise. Are those things that you would also recommend? Like, I mean, is there anything to cold plunging, or have you looked at that at all?
Yeah, no, definitely. The guy named is Wim Hof is the guy who like banging on about
Yeah.
cold plunging. And so there's a thing called heat shock protein that's released when you jump in cold water, and we know that it's very potent anti-inflammatory. So I think it has an acute effect for inflammation, which is really positive for because inflammation is a really bad actor because it leads to fibrosis and fibrosis destroys your organs. So yeah, it's good. Do you live longer when you cold plunge? That we're not there yet. Nobody. I mean, the people in Finland aren't living any longer than the rest of us. They do the cold plunge. So I'm not convinced it is anti-aging, but I am convinced that it plays a role in modifying inflammation, fibrosis, which are bad actors. Exercise is extraordinary for anti-aging, and to your neurogenesis that we talked about earlier, we know that it releases BDNF, which causes neurogenesis. So it's fantastic. Walter Bortz, who's the head of gerontology at Stanford, said if you are fit, you mentally and physically decline at 0.5% a year, generally starting around 25 or 30. Unfit, 2% a year. That's a hell of a delta. So, yeah,
Wow.
yes, both are very good for you. Intermittent fasting, we're also learning it turns on and off some genes that are definitely playing a role in aging. Heat shock protein probably does as well. And so I think that they're all good actors, but aging is complicated, but good stuff to do.
So
So
can you
keep
talk to
doing
me
them.
about I've read a bunch of different approaches to intermittent fasting. I mean, Jay, intermittent fasting, I thought it was, really taking 3 or 4 days of depriving your body of food.
Walter Longo.
Jay qualified it once, like he skipped breakfast and he calls it intermittent fasting, which,
Well,
I
it's
think it
16 hours.
like
16
he's
hours.
like, I ate dinner, I skipped breakfast, and then I ate
Yeah.
lunch. I'm like,
Let me
I
tell
don't
you.
know if that.
Let me tell you something. I didn't invent intermittent fasting. I just read about it. It said 16 hours. So I go from 8 p.m. dinner to noon, and they call it intermittent fasting. And I'll tell you something else. Everybody I tell I do intermittent fasting, the first thing they say to me is, "Oh, I already do that." And I'm like, "Well, then why are you 20 pounds overweight?"
Well, this is what I don't understand because Tim Ferriss, author of The 4 Hour Work Week, The 4 Hour Body, I mean, what a great lane. Everything's 4 hours. He described it 30 grams of protein within 30 minutes of waking up, followed by 30 minutes of cardio. So, and then he would skip meals this way. I've also heard it described with where Jay says 16 hours. Do you have a any knowledge on what's the best way to do it that you've seen, Greg? That what defines intermittent fasting and its most positive effect?
So the one that the most research has been done on are two different models. One is eating in a 6 to 8 hour window, and it does have some positive effects on
Stay eight
genetics
hours.
and a number of other things. And we've seen in mice that do that, they do very well. Generally, when people eat in a 6 hour
Wait, what
window,
is 6 day 8 hour? 6 day 8 hour. How does that
Ace, you're
break
not going to
down?
like the answer. It means
uh,
16 hours off. The other
yeah,
8, you're eating. All right, Bowden?
yeah. So yeah, you 16 to 18 hours you don't eat, 6 to 8 you do. And some people like I think Tim probably do it in 4 hours because he does everything in fours. Um, but then there's Walter Longo, a USC, who had amazing study results by doing a fast 5 days, 800 calories once every 3 months if you're normal weight, once a month if you're fat, once every 6 months if you're very, very skinny. And it resets how your body deals with energy. And he had incredibly positive results in aging. And to the point where it's now used at some cancer clinics for breast cancer patients because of the positive effect. So what I do is I also eat in a 6 to 8 hour window. Um, to Tim Ferriss's model, David Heber, the professor emeritus at UCLA in nutrition, says that you have to eat 1 gram of protein for every kilogram. So, Jay, if you're 180 something pounds, is probably 80 kilo. Um, and so you should eat 80 grams. But he said the mistake that Americans make is they do it in one sitting with that huge steak or that big protein. He said it has to be scattered throughout the day, which is what Ferris is talking about. So I sort of eat in that window because I have a little bit of protein with nuts and yogurt in the morning. And, and then when I actually am having what constitutes a meal is in the window. And then once every 3 months, I do what Walter Longo says. If you guys decide to do it, my recommendations are the following. One, do it when you're jet lagged. So you're not going, 12 noon, I've got to have lunch. 6 o'clock, I got to have dinner. So your body's a little messed up. And the other thing are mushrooms are incredibly filling with very little calories. So you can get through this easy. Get a nice sauce for the mushrooms. And it's 5 days, 800 calories, no meat or meat byproducts, and healthy carbs.
But did I get this correct that at one point you said during the eating phase that 85% would be carbohydrates?
No, it's
what's the break?
It's basically off of Scott Simpson's work out of Australia, where he said 70% healthy carbs, 10% to 15% healthy protein, and 10 to 15% of your diet should be healthy fats. And he said, and that's across, he's a zoologist. He said that's across all mammalian species. That's the basic ratio. The worst diet for you is 70% unhealthy carbs or massive amounts of protein, because that's very hard on your kidney and your liver. So scatter the protein and try and get the healthy carbs and the Mediterranean diet, again, that Jay alluded to.
70% carbs. So what's a healthy carb and an unhealthy carb? Because I always thought carbs were that was the thing that you had to
let me see if I got, can I try?
Yeah, sure.
Like
and I'll
fruits,
criticize, which is always fun.
Fruits and vegetables are healthy carbs, and unhealthy carbs are potato chips, bread, pasta.
Exactly. Yeah, and the really good carbs, and a really interesting study is like the whole grains, the really healthy grains, because I can eat sugar like fruit, and if I eat the whole grains, quinoa, all those sort of things, they actually mitigate the effect of the sugar so that it doesn't bother you as much. There was a study that just came out recently. So there's some really healthy grain foods that you should eat in that healthy carbs, along with the fruits and vegetables. Because most people think, I can't do any grains. But no, quinoa, all those sort of guys are very good for you. And lentils and whatnot.
Do you have a newsletter?
I do.
Do you have a newsletter? Okay. Hayes and I can stop writing all these goddamn things down because we're like...
We could also just listen to our own podcast and take our notes, but we're taking it at the time like we're in class.
Take notes.
Walter Longo, he just this is the last. We can move on. But does he recommend doing this 5-day thing every few months? Is that what it is?
3 months for normal people. Okay. And he actually sells a program, but basically it's got a lot of buckwheat in it. And, you can just as long as you can figure out what 800 calories are, you're way to the races. And as I said,
I have no idea how
fruits and vegetables and nuts.
Oh, I see it.
The beans.
When my kid was born, my first son, there was no such thing as saving the cord blood, the umbilical cord. Then when my daughters were born, there were two of them, I was able to do it. And then I was like, God, I've created this scenario where my son will get sick someday and he won't have his own cord blood. And I can't remember if they didn't have it or if I was just too cheap, but I didn't get it. And now I'm paying, every year I'm paying for this cord blood. I'm like, maybe he can use some of their cord blood, or maybe I can use some of their cord blood. What do you think? Is that important to do, cord blood?
We're going to solve it so that you don't need to do it. We're learning an enormous amount about creating pluripotent, which is a good stem cells, even from like your fat. So it'll almost be it'll be autologous. It will be much like the cord blood that you've got for your daughters. So that's coming, and depending on the genetic profile of your son and daughters, they may be able to, and you may be able to share in their stem cells. Certainly, it'll be a better match than getting it from somebody else if we haven't solved the riddle on creating your stem cells for you, which is coming fast. Another movie?
You have a question, Nate?
That is a movie. That's a Sophie's Choice of cord blood. It's a cord blood Sophie's Choice.
God, I should have done it. I'm so
You can
pissed.
only pay for one of your kids.
I'm so pissed. And I paid this $300 a year for cord blood. And I'm like, that's great. I'm psyched. I have a question about limb growth.
We have a company that does limb growth.
Okay. Because one of my pals in my comedy group, Broken Lizard, Eric Solhansky, had his knee, basically his leg amputated from he has this on his right leg.
Below BKA, below knee amputation.
Yeah, and so it was something to do when by 18 months old he lost it. And
he still beats you in a foot race.
No, but he was a captain of his baseball team. He can ski, he can play golf, and he often told I would sit there in bars while he told women that he was the shark took it in a surfing accident, and that works, by the way. But
seems like a hell of a price to pay to pick up a chick.
I always was jealous of those guys who would go on the Tonight Show and they would pull their shirts up and they'd have that shark bite out of their chest. I was like, man, I would love to get bitten by a shark like that and then let go. But anyway, I don't want to but you know what I mean. Now you're on the Tonight Show. You're like, come on, line up, ladies. But here's the thing, right? If I know that you have a company, okay, that's interesting. You can grow limbs back.
We cut off a leg of a creature, a living entity that should not regrow a leg, and we regrew the leg. And we published it in January 2020. And David Kaplan can do incredible things with regrowing limbs.
Can you, how much is it going to look like my real arm? Does it have all the bones? Will it keep growing? Will I have like a 12-foot arm? Like all these are the questions I'm sure you've answered.
Deadpool. So basically, when you go from embryo to fetus, your cells communicate using ionomeres, which is basically electrical messages back and forth. Hayes, you're going to become the skin. Jay, you're going to become the bone. I'm going to become the nerve, the arteries. And they self-organize. And you don't have a choice which one. You're like told which one you're going to become because of whatever the electrical current that hits you. So with quantum, even now, Kaplan and David Levine and Kaplan have figured out what that message is to regrow a hand or a leg in a frog. And frogs shouldn't regrow legs or hands. And now they can cause them to basically, cut off the limb and regrow that leg. Now, some of them look more like a leg than the other ones, but the extraordinary thing, if it's a younger frog, literally it looks exactly like a normal leg, and it has motors, sensory, it moves exactly the way it's supposed to move. So and I think when we have quantum computing, they're going to be able to unlock that secret for humans, where your friend, can decide whether he wants to regrow the rest of his leg.
I have a comedy movie idea. It's going to be a little silly, but okay. You cut off a man with a microphallus, small penis, and you grow it larger. Do you think you can do that? Or in my case, can you make mine smaller? Go ahead.
So basically, we have the brilliant Greg Bailey on, who's in charge of helping people improve their quality of life. He's been an innovator in the healthcare space for all these ailments, and you just want to know
I'm good
if
with
you
it.
can drink and get a larger penis.
Greg Bailey out.
These products are all about really what we want at our core, right? Like as the humans, as these animals, we want to have younger looking faces. We want to live longer. We want to have bigger dicks. Like, like these are the market is going to push it that way. Am I wrong?
I'm not sure, down to your, bigger dicks, but there's a drug that we have in another one of the companies that I started, the migraine company. We have a drug called myostatin, and we know that if you have an anti-myostatin, you'll become lean and muscular. You'll be more muscled. And that's without doing a crazy workout, and it'll make you so. Ozempic, Wegovy, all those guys, you lose 15 or 22% of your weight, but 25%, 20% of that weight loss is your muscles. So this is a great combination because on this drug you lose 8% of your weight, but you actually increase your muscles. So you're losing disproportionate amount of fat, let's say 12%, but you're increasing your muscle to offset it. So yeah, these drugs are going to be powerful. I mean, we got Botox for a reason, right? So this could be another drug that allows you to gain muscle mass, which is amazing because at age 60, 70, you begin to lose muscle mass regardless of how hard you work out. So, and I know you want to stay hard. So then, it'll play a role in musculature. But as for whether the thing that can regrow the penis to a greater length, it would be and right now it would be unlikely it would regrow what you had before.
I'm going to stick with what I got.
Yeah, that's not a comedy movie now.
What about this? I think I read or I heard about you talking about injecting a lymph node with a liver cell to create a brand new liver or a kidney or whatever. Is that a thing?
Yeah, no, absolutely. We are proved to do it at Harvard. And we were working on 2 more hospitals. Yeah, what was shocking, Eric Lagasse, the scientist, I don't know how he came up with it. I don't know where else he tried injecting, but he fundamentally found out that if I take liver cells, healthy liver cells, and I inject them into the lymph nodes that are around the liver, they turn into a liver, do all the functions that the normal liver does. And if I do a pathology, I actually send a biopsy of that to a pathologist, he can't tell the difference. The lymph nodes literally become that organ, a kidney, a pancreas for diabetics, And the extraordinary thing is we have 200,000 people in the United States who unfortunately have horrible liver disease, and we only have 8,000 livers available per year. So what he can do is he can take one liver and be able to treat 75 patients, which would work out to covering all the people who are unavailable for getting it on the donor list. So it'd be a transformative technology if it pans out in human clinical trials. And amazing.
That's incredible.
Also is you can do the organ that controls your lymphocyte, your T cells, which degrade as you age, and is why older people die of COVID and young people don't. Despite what Joe Rogan says.
I swore when we started this podcast that it wasn't going to turn into eventually a vehicle for selling supplements. I swore. And I think we're headed down the road.
There's some excellent supplements out there.
What about eye regeneration? Is that, is that possible?
When, the company's called Morphoceuticals, and it's Kaplan and Levin are the 2 scientists. And basically, there's an electric signature to create an eyeball. Once they see that in a fetus, when it goes from embryo to fetus, they'll see that. And once they get that signature, I can grow an eye. I can grow, an ear. So whatever you want.
How soon are these things? I mean, how soon are we talking about for these things? Like,
there's a huge delta. The drug that potentially can add 10 healthy years to your life goes into clinical trials this year. The drug that can potentially decrease your chance of getting Alzheimer's by down from 60% to 10%. It goes into clinical trials next year. The program that would allow you to regrow a hand or a leg is probably 7 to 10 years. So
It's not that far off.
Not crazy talk.
We might,
incredible.
we might make it. I have a few more questions on this. How much sleep should I get?
We have always said Matt Walker is the book that you want to read on sleep, and because he is the god of sleep, and he used to say I was at an event where he presented and I was presenting on aging, and you got up and you had testicles, and he had everyone's attention, and basically he said if you sleep less than 5 hours a night, your testicles will shrink by 35%. He had all the male listeners listening. But subsequently we found out that in actual fact, there's not a right number. There's some people that can get by with 3 to 4 hours. Most people, it should be 7 to 8.
Okay, so I guess
I just wanted to immediately go take a nap after I heard the 5 hours.
Yeah, whoa.
yeah. Whoa. Can you,
honey? I gotta sleep in. You don't want my testicles to shrink, do you?
Can you explain what ketosis is?
Yeah, and then I think we're going to run out of time actually as well. Basically, there's 2 ways to get into ketosis. One is you starve yourself, and that's what Walter Longo's diet does. You have 36 hours of sugar, most people, in their liver. And so you have to sort of burn through that first. And then by, day and a half, 2 days, your body begins to eat itself. And the next thing it eats is fat. And fatty acids turn into ketones. Ketones are processed by your liver and turned into something called BHB. That is a food source for your heart, your brain, and all your tissues. We know that your tissues are better served if they're using BHB than sugar, glucose. It's a healthier product for them. So that's one way to get into ketosis is starve yourself. And by day 2 or 3, you're there. It's also potent anorexic. So people who are in ketosis don't feel like eating, which is a big problem for anorexia nervosa. And then the other way, which we found in the last 10 years, is I can give you a ketone ester where it seems to work better than the salts. And we literally ran clinical trials because we have a ketone product. Within 15 to 30 minutes of taking our ketone ester, you'll be in ketosis. You'll stay there for 3 to 6 hours. You can eat French toast simultaneously with taking the ketone ester, and you'll still go into ketosis. But now you'll have high sugar and high fat product, and then you can go into. So you can use that as an alternative. And so ketone esters, you can actually take exogenous ketones, or you can do it through diet. University of California, Davis did a study, and they found that animals that are in ketosis on a regular basis live 13.6% longer than ones that don't experience ketosis. And it protects your brain and your heart. So it's a big deal.
Wow, okay.
And it's easy to do to get there.
And you've created something that helps you get there, that puts you into that state.
15 to 30 minutes. And the Department of Defense just gave us $10 million to run clinical studies on the military using the product, because most people in ketosis, which you probably experience a little bit of with your intermittent fasting, those people talk about being very mentally acutely aware and having more energy, which would be fantastic for soldier deployed in some remote area that you take a little drink and be back in the game.
So let's get to the vouch portion of our show. Greg, I started an app called Vouch Vault, and it's basically the Instagram of recommendations. You put whatever you love on there, and it's a way to preserve old movies, Caddyshack, Jaws, whatever. And so your kids go, oh yeah, these movies are all in one place, and you kind of, or books or red wines, whatever you love. So today I'm going to vouch for, it's called Optimist Botanicals. And it is a mocktail. And I've found that in attempting to reduce my alcohol intake, that if I have one vodka soda and then 2 Optimist Botanicals with soda water, my my monkey brain is tricked into feeling like it had 3 drinks. I know. It tastes really good, and I'm looking for now like non-alcoholic red wines. I need to trick my brain into thinking it's not getting deprived of anything because no one ever called me a quitter. But yeah, Optimus Botanicals. I'm a I'm a recent big fan of this mocktail, so that's what I vouch for. Hayes.
Uh, well, I was going to having Greg on and the innovation he's made in the healthcare space. I was just going to vouch for dirty anabolic steroids, the Lyle Alzado. I'm going to do a rough cycle and get bad skin and have rage episodes in the house. No, it's incredible how far all that stuff has come. I'm going to vouch for 2 movies I saw recently, which are kind of throwback movies that I'm excited to see because we felt like we went through this crazy phase of huge spectacle movies, and I saw both of these movies in theaters. Boys in the Boat, directed by George Clooney, about the U.S. rowing team right before the start of World War II from Washington State. It's a great underdog story. Reminded me of Hoosiers and just an inspirational, uplifting story that I really liked. And then I saw The Holdovers with Paul Giamatti, directed by Alexander Payne. And I thought both of those movies were fun to see in the theaters because you couldn't check your phone or be on your tablet. You had to pay attention, and they were great stories. So that's what I watched over this break.
Right.
So interestingly, I bumped into the director of Hoosiers, and he said Hoosiers wouldn't have happened if one of the kids in the semifinal game had been 1 year older. His name was Oscar Robertson. He was 14 when he was playing, and he said when he was 15, he would have crushed the team that eventually won and made the movie Hoosiers. So I guess riffing off of our final discussion, and a product that's available today that I can confidently say has the potential to modify how you live healthy is the ketone ester. It's called Cognitive Switch. It's on Amazon. 15 to 30 minutes after you take it, you're in ketosis for the next 3 to 6 hours. We know that this is a fantastic state for your body. They play a role in alcohol in preventing, how long how much the alcohol affects you, and also diminishing the amount you want. But most importantly is its effect on protecting the heart and the brain. And as I said, right now we've got a bag, $90 for 30 days, so $3 a day. To get a slightly smaller cup of coffee at Starbucks and potentially take a product that may add years to your life. So yeah, I think it's a very profound one for your vault.
And you take it when?
Good question. And recent research, it was being used by 6 of the teams on the Tour de France. And what they found was it doesn't help your performance, but it helps your recovery. So after you've ridden, over 100 miles, you've ridden in that 40 miles an hour, you can take it afterwards to recover to go do it again the next day, 27 days. So yeah, recovery is amazing. I personally take it in the morning. So I immediately get into ketosis with partial dose, and then I take it after working out for recovery, the other half.
And Greg, you can get it. You can get it on Amazon. And what do you search exactly?
If you put Cognitive Switch or ketone ester, we should come up. There's another competitor called Human, HVMN, but I think they're twice as expensive, and we have some great clinical results. I don't think they have those. So Cognitive Switch. And because it affects your cognition, and most people talk about the mentally acutely aware, so which is also nice to have a supplement. You actually feel the process, and it's tasteless, the powder, so you can put it into coffee in the morning, or you can put it into your smoothie.
But don't put it into like a vodka soda, right?
Yeah, at 9 a.m. Get the day off just the way you want it. Have you heard Dean Martin's quote about drinking and hangovers? They asked Dean Martin, they said, you drink a lot. And he said, I actually feel sorry for the people who don't drink. when they wake up, that's the best they're going to feel all day. So, yes,
I have a quote that we get in with, but I made a film with Burt Reynolds, and I was telling him, this is back in 2004. I'm like, I have a few every night. I just can't, this has been going on a while. And Burt told me that he was talking to Errol Flynn. Now, Errol Flynn is in Hollywood history the most famous drunk in the history of Hollywood. And he said, Errol Flynn told me, he goes, I wake up every morning hungover, and I quit drinking. And then I start again every afternoon. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. I agree.
Intermittent fasting.
Anyway, intermittent fasting, intermittent drinking. All right, Greg, that was so fun and for us, and so interesting and so exciting. I really appreciate it. And I'm going to contact you offline and get your. I need like a little list of what to do.
Yeah, I've got a regimen. I also have a website, Greg Bailey, and Dr. Greg Bailey, MD. I think it's on g.com. So yeah, and it has a list of my regimen on the second page of what I take. Okay. Thank you very much for having me. Hey, it's a pleasure to meet you, Jay. Great to see you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Greg. Appreciate it.
Mustache Tales.